Hello everyone, Trophy Wine Hunter. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm doing a really interesting tasting. It's a comparative tasting. Again, when I do comparative tastings, it's mostly because I drink so much wine. It's really difficult to put a full video together for each wine. So I kind of lumped them in. It's not a versus tasting, it's a comparative tasting, and we're recognizing that each wine has its own strengths and weaknesses. So I don't like to say there's a winner or loser. I just kind of, for my palate, I tell you what I think. So today I pulled out two things from my cellar. One is an older Mission Hill Icewine. It's the 2014 Reserve Vidal Icewine. I just wanted to try what happens with aged Icewine. And likewise, I have a Sauternes from a producer called Lafaurie, Puyraguey, and this is their 2009 vintage. So again, the process that you have with these two wines is quite interesting because they get to the same result, which is you develop a sweet wine. And so the process I think a lot of people are familiar with is the one with Sauternes, but I'm going to talk about Icewine first. So first of all, the process of Icewine, again, it's a sweet wine, and how they get to this kind of way is that the grapes on vine are not picked until it reaches a certain temperature, and it's in Canada it's -20 degrees. And so at that point they basically just squeeze the grapes, and because it's kind of frozen, there's not a lot of liquid that comes out of it. It's kind of in a solid state. So all that comes out is this sweet liquid or syrupy liquid. And it's the same kind of effect that you have with Sauternes. But the taste profile that you get from a ice wine is much different from Sauternes. For my palate, the ice wines, I find them a little bit sweeter, a little bit more syrupy than a Sauternes, and I don't find them to have, sometimes they're not as ageable as we'll see with this wine, and also they don't develop the kind of floral type components like rose petals that you would see from the Sauternes. But it's still a really great wine. I find ice wines go very well with very heavy desserts like cheesecake, double chocolate cake, that type of stuff. I think it kind of does better with overpowering desserts because of the sweetness. I find it's quite sweet. So let's talk a little bit about Mission Hill. Mission Hill was founded in 1981 by a very famous wine maker, wine person called Anthony Von Mendl. He's been responsible and very instrumental in the Canadian wine industry. And so it's a cross between the Trebbiano grape varietal and a grape varietal called Seibel 4986 or Raybon d'Or. And it was originally intended to kickstart the brandy production in Canada's eastern provinces. And why it's good, a Vidal is actually not a great grape for regular wines, but it's great for ice wine because it has very thick skin, strong resistance to cold, and it has natural high acidity. I will point out that I don't think Mission Hill actually makes this wine anymore. They actually only make their wines, or their ice wines, from Riesling grape, which actually makes sense because the Vidal grape type is not really known for its longevity, and Riesling is. So that's probably why, as you'll see with this tasting. So ice wines generally show caramel, butterscotch, and sweet apricot flavors. Before I go to the tasting of this wine, I would like to go to the compare and contrast with how Sauternes is made. So Sauternes, I think people are a little bit more familiar with. It's called noble rot. So what happens is there's certain grape varietals that when they're left in the vine longer, a rot develops, and that rot basically takes out all the juices of the grape, and the grape shrivels. And it's the same effect. When you squeeze the grape, you have very little, like you have syrup that comes out. So that's why you have this sweetness, and that's why they call it liquid gold. So Lafaurie Puyraguey is a state that goes back to the 13th century. And in those days, it was used as a fortress. So you'll see on the bottle, it does say Premier Grand Cru Class A in 1855. So as you'll see in my other videos about the Sauternes region, there was a classification system in 1855 for the Sauternes region. And this was one of 11 premier Grand Cru Sauternes. The only one that's higher, which is a superior Grand Cru, is Chateau de Camp. So it's a very good estate. The first known owner of this winery was a person called Sir Raymond Puyraguey, and that's where the name comes from. And he purchased it in 1618, and then a century later in 1796, the estate was attained by Pierre Lafaurie, and that's why you have the name Lafaurie Puyraguey. Then going forward in 1970, the Cordier family bought it, and the Cordier family is famous for owning other wineries like Rose and Chateau Talbot. And then in 1984, the Cordier family sold it to GDF Suez Company, and in 2014, a person called Sylvio Denz, who also owns a lot of other wineries in Bordeaux, bought the interest. And as soon as he bought it, he made a lot of renovations to the cellars. Supposedly after the 2013 vintage, the label changed and it's a nicer label. I haven't really seen it, so I'm gonna look out for it, of course. Sylvio Denz also increased the wine tourism around the chateau, and it now is a Relais and Chateau hotel. It's got a, I think, Michelin star restaurant there, so they've really upped the game in that part. But the underlying Sauternes is also excellent. The soil is, this is kind of a little bit more information for wine geeks. It's silica, gravel, and clay with gravel and limestone soils. On average, the vines are close to 40 years of age, but some old vines date back to 1926. The wines are aged on average 60% in new French oak barrels for 18 to 20 months. They produce about 4,500 cases a year of Sauternes, but only 40% is used in the Grand Vin. They also have a second wine. It's about 18.5 hectares, which is fairly large, mostly in the village of Bon, and the blend of the grape varietals planted is 93% Semillon, 6% Sauvignon Blanc, and 1% Muscadel. Let's look at the color of the both. And again, on camera, I think this is darker. In real life, this is a little bit lighter, but it is obviously oxidized. And then on camera, this is lighter actually. In real life, I think this is darker yellow, like an amber gold. Let's go to the actual bottles. So this is the Lafaurie Puyraguey. And then this is the Mission Hill Vidal. Let's get to the tasting of wines, and hopefully I'll be able to show you the colors of the wines too. So first of all, when I pour out the ice wine, I can tell you this is quite oxidized. It kind of looks like, I can get the color of that, it kind of looks almost port-like. So that's not generally the color that you want to see with ice wines. And again, it's not really fair to Mission Hill because this is really a test. And for me, that would to me say, well, if you have Vidal ice wine, which they don't actually produce anymore, that's aged, don't age it. Maybe you should drink it. The color is port-like. On the smell, it still has those components of ice wine. I normally expect peach, apricots, but it's got a little bit of oxidized aromas into it and a little bit of walnuttiness of it, but a little bit slightly oxidized. Not bad, but it's just not, it's missing some of the freshness of, I would expect, of the grape type, and a little bit of funkiness on the nose, I would say. So on the taste, it tastes like it tastes sweet like honey. It's like prunes and almost like bamboo water. So it's not bad. So I wouldn't say like, oh, this is terrible, I gotta spit it out. But it's probably past its prime. It's probably oxidized. And that's probably why Mission Hills doesn't make this. And again, it's for a normal beginner drinker who has never drank ice wine, I don't think you'd actually think this is that bad. This is quite good actually, but it's not what is prototypical, what you expect from ice wine, and you're losing some of the freshness, the acidity, the lightness of it. It's almost like port-like because it's oxidized. So I'm not even going to rate this wine because it's not, I don't think it's fair to the wine. I think in its prime, it would have been very nice, but I think it's a little bit over its prime right now. It's still very interesting to drink. It's not bad. I could drink this easily, so it's not like I'm not going to drink this. But it's not characteristic of general ice wine. It's actually even sweeter than a normal ice wine. If you have Vidal Mission Hill ice wine in your cellar, drink it right now. Comparatively, let's go to the 2009 Sauternes. And I think that's the real difference. I think, at least my experience is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe with Riesling ice wine it's different, but with Vidal ice wine, I don't think it's ageable, and it kind of declines after a little while. With Sauternes, it actually gets better. And so this is even older. This is 2009, but this is a perfect color for Sauternes. It's beautiful amber yellow. On the nose, you get the very characteristic roses, honeysuckle, a little bit of caramel also. That is not prototypical of ice wine. Ice wine is more like peaches and apricots and primary flavors. And then when it gets older, it gets a little oxidized. And I wouldn't, like almost like a little bit of nuttiness, in my opinion. So this is, it's almost like a creme caramel now. It does have some honey and honeysuckle, maybe some melons, I would say cantaloupe type flavors. On the aftertaste, it's got a caramelized taste to it. So that's very pleasant. The length is good. I think it's ready to drink. I don't think you need to age it any longer, but very nice length. It's kind of very heavy on the palate. The ice wine in its prime would go well with heavy dark chocolate desserts, chocolate cake, you know, that type of thing, the red velvet cake, you know, heavier desserts. This would really go nice with cheeses and like fruits. The Wine Spectator rating is 93 points. I'm okay with this wine. I think I'm going to give it, I think that's a fair rating. I'm going to go 91 points. I think on the length, it's actually, I think it's a little bit at its prime or going to its peak, going in its decline. It's a little bit not as long an aftertaste as I'd like to see with some of the other Sauternes that I've had, and the acidity is waning a little bit. So I think it's a good wine, but not the best Sauternes I've had. So I'm going to give it 91 points. Hope you've enjoyed this tasting. Until next time, happy drinking.